So we had basically 15 to 20 minutes, preferably 15 minutes, to have a post-performance talk and a book presentation. So it's a very ambitious task. This is the book, but we have 12 now. There is a nice connection, actually. There is a very good connection with the book and the piece that you saw tonight. So Boris and Gisela Dance were in New York at MoMA exactly 5 years ago, 2013, with a project called Musée de la Danse, Free Collective Gestures. And it was basically an invitation from an institution to another institution, from one museum to another museum. Musée de la Danse, a dance museum, an institution that Boris was directing until recently. And to think together how we can work, how we can perform in a museum, how we can conceive museum for dance and dance for museum, even if the two ideas seem somehow in contradiction. And Boris and his team decided that they would not do something new, but they would just do their project for the museum, like open protocol, and do free projects. That's the free in the title of the collective gestures. And the collective gestures, the idea, of working together, of working as Bojana Cvej in this book says, as Boris tribe. So Boris always come in a group somehow. And the three pieces that were presented were 20 dancers for 20th century, but basically 20 dancers were performing in different galleries and spaces of MoMA, solos that they learned. So this idea basically that the archive, the history, the memory of the dance is in the body of the performer, but also in the story and the narration, because the performance was belonging to the public. The second was the Lady Conflit, which is a piece for 24 dancers and 25 gestures. And the last one was Flipbook, or basically a performance of the images of the Merce Cunningham book edited by David Vaughan by the Merce Cunningham archivist. So the thread somehow it was a lot about history, about archives, about body and space and relations. And in 2014, in January, after a few months after the project, when I think Boris recovered, in January he wrote me a New Year's email, and like also reflected a bit on the experience at MoMA in New York. And at one moment he says, after I look at the Lady Conflit, I had an idea that instead of working with one form that was done by movement that are visible, I would like to imagine a piece which there is not at all repetition. Something like no dancer doing the same movement, no movement being repeated. A choreography done by 60 to 100 gestures, completely different, around 10,000 gestures. It's just a flash and not a piece yet, but suddenly I could foresee how to proceed for this impossible collection of movements, or at least start to think really about this giant process. It was super strong to have a flash about something new, right while doing the best version of the bed ever. And basically, as you might have read website and on the brochure, the program that we received tonight, the piece that you saw tonight is the piece. This is the idea. This flash is the one in the email here. And soon after that exchange, this book happened. This is the book which is part of the MoMA Dance Series book, edited by David Velasco. There's also Sarah Michelson, edited by Velasco herself, and crowdfunding edited by my colleague Thomas Latz. And the book also was published a month before the premiere of 10,000 Gestures. So, even if we have another 10 minutes to talk about it, I thought it is somehow really close to the circle, in a certain way. And I would like Boris to hear more about this flash that you had in relation to the Lady Conflit in this space. The Lady Conflit happened in the atrium at the moment. It's like a big
and something about erasure of the gesture, something about letting go, and this is how we started the piece. But it was only an idea. It was not a piece. It was we gathered dancers. We did some workshops before, and then we started. But I didn't have an idea how do you construct the gestures? How can we design such an amount of gesture? And it was really from this idea, single idea. We started first day doing the first gestures you see in the piece. That is the doing nothing gestures. We made maybe 20 minutes improvisation with just doing nothing. And this is maybe the first 4 seconds of the group entering, because we compressed it. And we decided quickly that we would not do an exhibition of the gesture. That would be a 6-month-long project. That's for next time. But to make a storm, to make something where, as a viewer, you would have to choose where to look at. The gestures would be like a snowflake when you're driving in the winter. They are popping up, coming in your lights of the car, and you have to react to it. And we thought it was more interesting. So we decided for the storm, we decided for the speed, and then we did really a daily process of adding gestures. And it was not on the plan to, for example, scream, but because I thought the gestures were not visible enough, we would not understand where they come from. We started screaming, not out of the idea that we should scream in the piece. I didn't care, but that by screaming you would probably see it more clearly. What are these gestures? Where do they come from? And then again, like going in the audience was just because we were stuck. We didn't know what to do more. We did one gesture after another, and then we thought, but okay, there's some gestures we didn't do that are maybe taking the glasses of someone, because we don't have glasses here, or bags, and it's another space, mental space, but also physical space with other bodies. So this is how we developed, but it was really a piece, one idea piece. 10,000 gestures.
Because Lever de Conflit is a piece where they're basically the dancers are passing the gesture to each other. So one is doing, it's like a choral principle of music in a way. One is doing one gesture, the second is coming doing the first gesture, where the first is doing the second gesture, and so on and so on. So if you focus really on the piece, you really can understand a certain mechanism, and it become visible. It become always, as you said, a sculpture, where here you have the impression that the sculpture is falling apart. There is, I saw it yesterday and today, and it felt very kind of a majestic classic, but also in the kind of...
It's the column.
It's the column, yeah. The gold column, yeah. And also, but also like an algorithmic ruin in a way, because you don't really understand where the gestures are coming from. And I wanted to ask you, how did you work? Did you work based on a score? Where those 10,000 gestures are coming from each performer?
Yeah, it was clear that I would not design 10,000 gestures. Also, it was clear that no choreographer would like 10,000 gestures. Each choreographer is picky. There's only a few movements that you think they are your own, or that it belongs to your heritage, or I don't know. So if you say it's a piece with 10,000 gestures, then you know that whatever gesture is proposed, it has to be in the piece. You're doing this thing, it's in the piece. You're moving like that, it's in the piece already. So it was not a piece where you can select where as a choreographer you can decide. You have to accept whatever comes. And the only thing what you have to do is that whatever thing you did first, like this one, you need to do something else. And then something else, and then something in opposition to what you did, and then go on and go on and go on. Let's say forever.
And each has the freedom of do it. Each has its own.
Yeah, and then
repertoire.
Really, it was the dancers proposed. We in a way we made a score, but it was not like as if I would design a score with Magali Caillet, who was assisting me, and then we would give it to the dancers. Dancers would improvise or compose based on the score. It was in the studio to remember what we do. We did build a score, like doing 25 doing nothing gesture, and then gestures where you start something that is clear, that is taking you back, and then you lose your idea, you lose your motivation, you do something else. And then stepping backwards gesture, where the gestures are in a way offered in front of yourself. So, and then doing n'importe quoi, so whatever gestures, and then screaming gestures, and then running gestures. And there is a kind of a score. actually, the real score is the 20-something scores by the dancers themselves, because they had to. You can't remember. Each of them they do 600 or more. You can't remember it. It's like a split screen. It's a cut up. So they had to write each of them their score with. Is it drawings, little words, sentences, tools to have the memory of it? But so you could say there is a score in the piece that you can, in a way, read, but at the same time, it's not a scored piece where we would give a score and then it would be just interpreted by the dancers.
And I cannot help not asking you about the music and the costumes.
So the costumes, we made it for the 2 columns, right? The costumes are made by a Belgian designer called Jean-Paul L'Espagnard. He's not there tonight. He's a very good designer, and he has really weird taste. So I guess this is why we work together, and that's his take. And it was very difficult to find the costumes of this piece. We did really, he wanted a gender split, so in opposition to all queer and fluid manner, he wanted all boys wearing this dance, I don't know how you call it in English, the trousses, like dance belt, and all women gala dresses, and we felt awful with that. So it was really a long process to arrive there. And the music was the same. I thought that it should be a piece in silence. It was a very clear decision from beginning that it should be a silent piece, because I thought if you put a music on top of that, it unifies the gestures. But while we were working, we felt quickly that the feeling was as if it was a fish tank, where the dancers are having fun, they are interested, I was interested, but somehow it didn't reach me. Why do we do all this? And so we looked for how to do, and of course each gesture has its own soundtrack somehow. A demonstration has its own soundtrack. Of course some movements have the music that was created for the gestures, or vice versa. And so we decided to have maybe a first part in total silence, where even clapping hands would have no sound. And then a second part where maybe you would get the voices of the gestures from the dancers. And I was looking for a third part that could be something they would sing. And we came to the Requiem, because of course, because it's a symmetry of gestures, I thought the Requiem, it's a heritage piece, but it's also, you hear the death of the composer, and it's also music for the death. So I thought, why not? Because the feeling of what we were producing was not only the symmetry of gesture, but also the feeling that it's as if when you're drowning and you have 1 minute before you die, you, in theory, re-watch your entire life in 1 minute. And this is a little bit what we were doing all the gestures before dying, or before you don't know what, or also connected to this Tex Avery cartoon where you have characters running, there's a cliff, if they don't watch, they don't fall, and if they watch, they fall. And we felt maybe we are this running, forced or not forced running character before falling. So we thought Requiem could work, but what I wanted, because in the piece everything is so speedy, that we would sing the whole Requiem a cappella in 15 minutes. So
like our presentation.
Yes, but quicker. And we tried, but it was just, I like weird singing, I like uncanny voices, but it was impossible. It was just, they couldn't learn it, we didn't have enough time, we were so busy with the gestures. So, and then there was just one day during the project where we just, as a release, we just play the music just like that, just to do a rehearsal. And then after that, it was impossible to get rid of the music. Like, of course, we were very split, because a part of us and a part of me hated to play the music with our dance that was not made for this music. And another part was like, we can't escape, we have to perform this music. And in a way, it took us months to accept that it would be in the piece. But a little bit like we had to accept that some gestures I do hate in the piece. And there's a moment you accept that, why not? It's part of it's part of the world of gesture. It's part of what the dancers do or could do, and so you need to let it go or let it be. And the music is the same. It took us a long time. We tried to escape Requiem, we tried to escape Mozart, but it's in the piece finally. And
it works
that's
well.
it. Thanks.
Yeah.
I don't know actually, but yeah.
Well, you can tell why why Boris is signing the book. And you know, going back to the book a little bit, it's the MoMA project was a bit of a starting point for the book. It was really thinking about some of the ideas, some of the way that you work usually, and you know, as I said, in relation, I think, to your interest somehow in the dance history, in genealogies, but also in writing, and also in archives, by erasing archives, also in starting from the scratch, and also, I think, creating spaces for dance, creating different institutions that you did through your life, and now somehow the Musée de la Danse, which it's an existing institution in France that used to be called, and now is called again, the Choreographic National Center that Boris renamed Musée de la Danse, or a dancing museum. And you know, different writers in the book are dealing with different period or different works, like Bojana Cvejić is writing about Théâtre Vision, which is basically a work where there is no movement at all. There are no dancers, but just a screen. There is also a lot about your earlier works before Musée de la Danse. Noémie Solomon is writing about Flip Book, the Cunningham piece, Adrian Hitwell about Unfun, but there is this like thread that we try to keep related to Musée de la Danse. And also in the book, somehow the introductory essay, my essay, talks about this necessity of institutions and books and to somehow provide memory, context, and history of movement for gestures, but then also being somehow aware of an inevitable inability to do so. And so at the moment when Musée de la Danse is coming to an end, you're like turning another page, it feels like that this book is what, a part of the works, but it feels also that it is what it stays, in a way. It's some kind of a testimony of it.
It's 10 years in one book.
Yes.
It's so at the end of December it will be 10 years, and we are moving on. We are, and of course some of the ideas, some of the projects, some of the pieces are going on to be performed, to be re-experimented. For example, the project 20 Dancers for the 20th Century, after MoMA, we did it in many different places. And we will go on from time to time to do it. But it's also felt, even though it was not a project for 10 years, it's a project for 200 years, and I still think we should have really a Musée de la Danse, a museum of dance, a dancing museum, call it as you want it, to have really a place where dance is not only in the public space of the dance school or in the theater, but with another door. I still really believe in the fact that we should have a building, a symbolic space, a mental space where you push a door that is called Musée de la Danse. I still believe dance has to be experienced in a multi-layered way where visitors think they will visit dance, but actually dance is visiting them, and that what is a collection, the museology, a new type of public space via dance where you have a lot of walls that should be eroded, one between theory and practice, one between education and pedagogy and art, one between history and improvisation, among other walls. And I still believe in it, but I also think that we've done 10 years on that. In the last years, we are very, very much focused on the public space and how to behave in urban cities, and what is this togetherness that we are that we have a strong desire for, but also that is an open question, let's say, especially in the realm of these terror attacks that we had in Europe, in the rise of populism, so our research on Musée de la Danse also did a little curve where we were more and more in the public spaces and thinking what would be not only the political assemblies and the public assemblies, but also the choreographic assemblies. And in a way, I love the idea of the collection. I love the idea of the museology of dance and how to build that. But maybe there are also other questions that could belong to Musée de la Danse, but could become in themselves a terrain for investigation. And maybe this is what we do next. So, voilà.
I think that our 15 to 20 minutes are pretty over, but and we can continue. I mean, this is like the stage moment is over, but we can continue in the foyer also with. If you would like to buy a book, Boris, for sure you can sign it and we can talk more. I would like to take Jay and NYU Skirball. But I would also like to end, because Simone Forti is in the public here with us, and there is this image that when Simone was part of the poster sessions, and when she's keeping, I don't know if you can see it, but she's like keeping those two cardboards, and on one is written body, and on the other is world. So I think this is exactly what you were saying. Thank you so much.